Hi everybody, my name is Garrett Davis. I did an introduction earlier by video. Hopefully this one will be a little bit longer and more informative for you. I'll do a couple of these videos throughout the course of this class, and the point of them is just to create content that otherwise I don't think that your book is creating, that I think is pretty essential and necessary for this class. I'm no professional vlogger or anything like that, as evidenced by the fact that I'm in front of a crib, some dirty clothes and that kind of stuff in my son's room. But hopefully it'll still be useful to you in different ways. I'll do it all in one take, so if I mess up or say something stupid, then just don't hold it against me. Have a little grace for me there. I wanted to start class by talking about this Introduction to Thinking 101. I'm sorry it's a little bit late. There's a, it's special being a dad of two little small children. I don't think I mentioned that Jack, my oldest son, is about to turn 2. And then my daughter, Juniper, is almost 5 months. She was born on April Fool's Day, earlier this April. And so it's definitely taking more time and energy than I thought that it was going to, for sure. But that being said, let's jump right into it. So Intro to Thinking 101. The main thing that I wanted to hit on is that studying society is not a matter of just our opinions. Oftentimes whenever I have conversations with students, and by the way, if I look down, I'm just looking at notes that I have. But whenever I'm talking to students about their ideas on things, one of the things that I hear all the time is, well, I just think, and then fill in the blank there. And when they say that, very rarely do they mean, based on this data that I've looked at, this objective data that I've looked at, I think this thing. What they mean is my general feeling on this, based on the random assortment of media consumption, the upbringing that I have, the prevailing thoughts and attitudes that I already have. Here's what I tend to think about this phenomenon happening in society. That's my son trying to get into the room. Jack, stay out there, okay, Bubba? So don't worry, my wife is out there, in case you're wondering if I just locked myself in a room and my children are out there. So that being said, they come into it with this set of attitudes and thoughts that are not actually very helpful, because they're not rooted in data. They're not rooted in objective thought. So let me take a second to debrief here what objective thought means. So objectivity versus subjectivity. Objectivity places an emphasis on observable, empirical, provable data. Okay, so for instance, if I said, the Earth is round. I know that we probably have some flat earthers out here, but hopefully that's not you. But we say the Earth is round, or it's spherical to be more precise. We can see that as we go into space. We look back at Earth, and there you go. There's the data. Now, if I said something like, the Earth is really big. Now, that's something that depends. Okay, it's relative, depending on the sense of size that you're looking at here, and so that might be a subjective statement. So objectivity is rooted in data, it's rooted in fact, it's rooted in evidence, and subjectivity is rooted in one's perception. It's rooted in one's feeling towards something or one's opinion of something. That doesn't necessarily mean that it's untrue. Definitely our Western culture over the last 400, 500 years has shed a lot of doubt, and probably decreased more than necessary an emphasis on subjective thought. But especially for studying society in class, we're interested in objective thought. We're interested in thought that's rooted in what can be observed, and what can be proved through the study of society, which is exactly what sociologists do. And I just got an email from one of you, actually. It's a person that's been around for a while, and she's interested in taking this course because she sees that our society is, let's just say, it's not doing as well as she would have hoped that it would have done coming out of the 60s. And she said, I think this is an important subject to study. And she's right. Sociology is important. I know that's probably self-serving a little bit, but it is important because of the fact that we all live in this society. And it is extremely important that we understand the phenomena that are happening in it, so that perhaps we might change some things for the better moving forward. But that being said, it's important to note a couple of different things. Take a second to think here. because we have a ton of different ideas that are floating around in society. One group thinks one thing, one group thinks another thing. How is it that we can have this level of disagreement with one another? There's something to be said about the fact that there's so many different thoughts, and everyone thinks that they're right. So take a second to think. Think about something that you're wrong about. I'll give you a second. Think of anything that you're wrong about. Did you come up with anything? That's fascinating, huh? You couldn't think of a single thing. Well, that would be weird to think, though, that everybody is 100% right all the time. Okay, so you can't think of anything that you're wrong about, and yet you must be, hopefully, you must be wrong about some things. So the question then becomes, what's the problem with being wrong? What does it feel like to be wrong is the big question. Think about that. Okay, embarrassed, bad might be a more vague one. We dislike being wrong, that kind of stuff. But that doesn't actually answer the question, because I said, what does it feel like to be wrong? And that answers the question, not what does it feel like to be wrong? It actually answers the question, what does it feel like to be proven wrong? Because what it feels like to be wrong is exactly the same way that it feels like to be right. Think about it. If you are wrong right now, which we assume that you must be about some things, you feel just as right on it as you would about anything else. You feel sure about it. You feel like that's the truth, and that's problematic for us if we come to study society and we think that we must be right on certain things. We're only going to find things that fill our notions of correctness already. We're only going to look for information that suits our prejudice, that suits our predetermined understanding of things. But hopefully, this concept of being wrong and yet feeling very right, feeling wrong or being wrong is the same feeling as being right, which should be scary to us and hopefully provide us with a little bit of humility to begin to understand society the way that it actually is. And hopefully then it also leads us to an understanding of society that's correct in different ways. So even sociologists will disagree about things, but there's some things that are harder to disagree with. For instance, the evidence is certainly mounting, although it's against the common understanding, that women are in fact a lot better drivers than men as a whole. There's also increasing evidence that's mounting, and this is evidence that's been around for a long time. That minorities are not experiencing the criminal justice system in America the same way that majority whites are. And we're going to dive more into that soon. But if you're not open to being wrong on it, then most likely you're not going to be interested in what this course has to offer, because what this course is primarily interested in is helping you understand society from an objective, empirical perspective. And we actually call it the sociological imagination. It's a term that was coined by C. Wright Mills, and he used this term to essentially help us see that we're not just individuals acting in our own individual worlds and based on our own individual unique decisions, but rather that society has a huge effect on us and is wielding its control over us in a number of ways. So the sociological imagination is about being able to see the general in the particular. It's about being able to see these big picture, the ways in which society is affecting us as a whole individually. And so whenever we see one person doing one thing, we don't simply say to ourselves, oh, this is an individual actor in time and history who has not had culture affect them whatsoever. Rather, we say, this is somebody who's a product of their culture. How might their culture, how might their environment have shaped them to be who they are and what they are? And so you yourself are going to begin to hopefully have to look at yourself from that perspective and say, what is it about my upbringing, my life, my culture today, living in 21st century America? What is it about that shaped my understanding of reality? And hopefully, as we move into these first few chapters discussing history and perspective and things like that, it'll be more and more useful to us. I'm gonna go ahead and sign off for now. I didn't cover half of what I had hoped to cover, but we're already at 10 minutes, so I guess I'm just a real talker. You're lucky that you're not taking me for an in-person class this semester. I'll do more of these as the semester goes on. Make sure that you watch and listen. They will be fair game for things like quizzes and tests and things like that. All right, you guys have a great day.